Okay, so further to framing and conceptual metaphor, I thought I'll talk a little bit about assignment 3, parts 1 and 2, because it ties into those theories. Part 1 basically asks you to apply this theory, or apply your understanding of frames and metaphors to a particular problem. And it asks you to imagine you are a marketing consultant, asked to reduce, what does it say? It says specifically that it wants you to persuade consumers to buy smaller, more efficient, more economical, environmentally friendly cars. It asks you to do that. So really it's asking you to think of a clever way that you would construct an advert or persuade somebody to actually want to buy not a cheaper car necessarily, but a smaller one, a more economical one, an electric car maybe, which isn't cheap but environmentally friendly. How would you go about doing that? So think about it in the context of metaphors. I said to you, metaphors are really things that get neurally primed in your brain. It's not something that's there, it's not something you're born with. You come to learn that love is warm because of the behavior of, say, your mother towards you as a baby. You come to learn that that's the case. And then you come to use that in your language. And then just the reverse just happens to be the case as well. You happen to just take that as an entailment. So if you say, Saskia was very cold to me today, you just expect it to be like the opposite of being loving and kind and friendly and so on. You just take that as, because cold is the opposite of warm. It comes as a metaphorical entailment. So it's very rich. It's a very rich conceptual tool that you can tap into. So think about that. When you have an advert and there's a woman in a bikini standing next to the new BMW 3 Series, what's happening there? What's happening to you on a neural level? Very, very basic things are happening. Basic meaning very emotional things, very emotive things, very neural things. Nothing really abstract is happening. You're driving down the highway, there's this massive billboard, there's this really attractive woman who's sprawled across the bonnet of the new 3 Series, and it says something like, "You can't resist," as the headline. What does that do to you? So the part of your brain that's appreciating this woman physically, sexually, that's why there's so much of sex in advertising, because sex sells, as you may have heard. What's happening there? You're now suddenly seeing the BMW, and you're seeing the BMW logo, and you're seeing the BMW brand, and you're seeing the physical car, the latest 3 Series, and you start to associate the two. And you associate it so easily because that woman just taps into something that every man wants and desires at a very primal level. And then just subconsciously, you automatically start to want the car as well, because you associate the two. Exactly as the love is warm metaphor gets formed, you start to form a wanting for this car. Not everybody, but by and large, this is how human nature works. So how are you going to use this fact of human nature to persuade people? That's essentially what part 1 is asking you to do. Part 2 on page 14 of your TAT letter asks you to think about the efficacy of your intervention. Whatever it is you chose to do, however you chose to persuade people to buy cheaper cars, how would you check whether what you've done is effective or not? So you need to think of maybe 2 car dealers, one where this intervention was implemented and one where it wasn't, and compare the results. And think of how you're going to do that. That's all. It's very simple. So what you're doing is essentially like a miniature micro research type thing. Choose 2 car dealerships that are similar in most ways, preferably similar in every way, but in reality you might not get that. And then just tell us, how would you go about doing that? So you would go and tell the manager of this particular dealership to hand out these flyers to their customers, and explain how they'll do it, which customers, when, or put up posters around the dealership, whatever. It's up to you to decide what type of intervention. And then, how will you check whether it's effective? Essentially, one car dealership will be like a control group in an experiment. Another one will be an experimental group. The control group is the one where nothing happens. The experimental group is one where you've implemented your intervention, whatever that is. And then you need to think about how you will compare the results. So before and after. Before your intervention, everything was the same. After the intervention, you need to measure the differences in the buying patterns between dealerships at these two places. So you need to think about how you do that. It's completely up to you. One way to do it is to hand out a survey to the last 50 customers who bought cars and look at the types of cars they bought. The other way is you can ask the manager to allow you to go into the database and see, maybe a month after you've put up your posters or handed out your flyers, is there a difference in the buying patterns? Are there more smaller, more economical cars being sold? So that's essentially the point. So assignment 3 is to get you to think about how you would apply this abstract theory to something that's real, that's out there in the world, and something that can make a difference. So I hope that helps. Essentially, you have carte blanche to do it as you wish, but roughly we want you to start thinking like a researcher. So on that note, I'll stop there, and the next video, Saskia will introduce you to conceptual blending theory.